Okay, let's go here to OG. He says, the best game caller, great memories listening to Hacksaw call the Chargers and Aztec games.
Yeah, we're going to do something special sometime in January. Time goes by. This is the 30th anniversary of the greatest moment in San Diego Chargers football history. 30th anniversary coming up in January. AFC Championship victory in Pittsburgh and the party in the rain at the stadium. So we'll set aside a show to do a stroll down memory lane. And it's odd we're talking San Diego Chargers football and its great success compared to what just happened on Sunday afternoon, Tampa Bay, what they did to the Bolts at SoFi Stadium. But thank you for the compliment, and we'll try to stoke those memories for you. We'll do something in January.
Yeah, awesome. This is just awesome.
You're right. We are bleeping brilliant.
Yeah, let's move on here. Let's go to Greg. He goes, Lee, I believe if MLB ownership and the MLB Players Union does not agree on a salary cap, then mid-market teams will eventually just see the Dodgers and Yankees in every World Series. What do you think?
Bingo. I've been saying that, and then the second sentence should be, we need a floor to spending. If you're taking revenue sharing, you got to spend that revenue sharing. The floor to spending works in every sport. It's worked in the NFL, it's worked in the NBA, works in the NHL. Very simply, you can have a hard salary cap or you can have a luxury tax. And if you go over that limit, you got to pay a tax, and all that money goes into the central fund, which is then shared with all the other markets. But all the other markets are taking the money and they're operating with $57 million payrolls. If we had a floor to spending, which the bottom floor is, say, $120 million, you're taking revenue sharing, you got to spend $120. That would make more money available for veteran free agents who would sign in Oakland, would sign in Pittsburgh, would sign in the smaller markets, because you have to spend $120. So that'd make those teams better and much more competitive. So it hasn't happened yet. Using a hard salary cap, that's going to be a fight. The union's never going to agree to that. But if you got the luxury tax limit and you pay a steep tax over it, but you're forcing all these other guys that are taking revenue sharing, like Miami and those guys, if you had $120 million you had to spend, you'll get pitchers that go pitch in Miami, and suddenly the Marlins would not be a woeful, begone last place team.
Well, aren't there some teams that get more money in revenue sharing than the total of their payroll? Wasn't that the Oakland A's?
Yes.
And now, granted, you notice how Fisher's starting to spend money now, on trying to get some players there for Oakland. But yeah, they got to do something here. They got to solve it, because there's some owners like Cohen. He doesn't care about the penalties. He just keeps paying.
He's got more money than God.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, and Greg, I think he'd probably agree with me, is it good for baseball to have 5 teams that have all this money, can get any player they want, 5 teams, and have 25 other teams that can't compete? Is that really good for the big game of baseball? Next question.
Okay, let's just go here to Roy. Just a quick shout out. Hello from Chiefs country in the Republic of Missouri.
Oh, best 13-1 team that I don't think has a prayer of being in the Super Bowl, unless something changes in terms of injuries. And now Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain, and those things don't heal in 15 minutes. So suddenly Kansas City's got another injury here after getting guys back. They got Pacheco back, which has brought great energy at running back. Marquise Brown has now been cleared, is practicing this week. He might be ready to go a week from now, but now you got Mahomes hurt. That's a big issue. But Kansas City's 13-1. We can't take that away. But if you have to have Carson Wentz in the playoffs, can Kansas City win with Carson Wentz?
No. I mean, they're barely winning now with Patrick Mahomes, but at least they won comfortably this weekend.
Okay. We'll see. It's great to hear from you from the Independent Republic of Missouri. Hi. Next one.
Okay. Let's go here to Yin. She says, Hacksaw, where do you think Curtis Rourke will go in the NFL draft?
He's the Indiana quarterback vis-a-vis my alma mater, Ohio University. Really good player. But I don't know, because running quarterbacks don't survive in the NFL, and part of his thing is being able to move the pocket and do RPO things. I haven't seen any true draft projections yet, but I would have to think maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th round, or maybe Canada. His brother is doing really well. His brother Nathan was at Ohio U with Curtis, and he set all the records, and he's up in the CFL with the British Columbia Lions, and he signed one of the pricier contracts up there, and He's had some pretty good success. The first time he came to the NFL, never got a chance to play, went back to Canada. So Curtis Rourke's real future might be north of the border. Okay, we move on.
Okay, let's go to comment. Yeah, inquiring Canadians want to know if that's a real tree. Spill it, Hacksaw.
Oh, Canada, that's a good-looking tree at this point in time. Is that a good tree? Real tree?
Well, the short answer is no. It's an artificial tree. But we had gone for years going up here to these pinery tree farms and cutting them down ourselves and bringing them in. And after you start to get a little older, and it becomes kind of a pain in the arse, to have to clean up after and worry about the thing catching on fire. I like this artificial tree.
It looks good.
It looks good.
It makes us look better.
Yeah, it does. So,
Great Christmas tree story. 30 seconds. I love dogs, and I've had golden retrievers.
Yeah.
So I had this young golden retriever, and we do go to the pinery, and we do cut the trees, and we have the live trees, and the needles fall off and all that, and it smells great for 15 minutes. So I have this young golden retriever, and usually he was not allowed to run through the house, but he got out, and he saw the tree, and he saw the shiny objects on the tree, and he went and sniffed and sniffed. He walked around. He raised his leg on the tree.
in the house.
In the house. And then I had another golden earlier, and he was always enthralled by the lights and the shiny bulbs. And he tried to chew the Christmas lights because they were blinking on and off. And then he walked behind the tree because he saw a shiny bulb that attracted him. Walked behind the tree. He knocked the tree over. So Goldens and Christmas trees don't always link well together.
Yeah, Goldens have a personality.
Oh, best dogs in the world.
Yeah.
You saw the story about Kirk Herbstreit's. He's got 3 Goldens and one passed away, and he took the dog on the road with him all the time when he was broadcasting games.
Well, I see him on the set for that college game day.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Well, his oldest one just passed, but he's got these other Goldens too. Okay, that's our Christmas tree story. Thank you for the compliment. It makes us look good.
It does. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Jason. Chargers are pretenders. Defense is pathetic. Number 1 score in defense is a worthless stat. Means nothing.
Well, like I said, they were 7-3. And Jim Harbaugh was giving us that tent revival speech about greatness, this, that, and the other. And my response was, well, let's wait till you play somebody. And since then, they almost lost to Burrow, should have lost. Almost lost to Atlanta because Kirk Cousins gave the game away. And then they get punched in the mouth by Baltimore, trampled by Tampa Bay. Now they've lost 3 of their last 4. And now the quarterback's hurt. They got so many people dinged up, and it's a short work week. I mean, they're breathing heavy, picking up the pieces, and they got to play Denver on Thursday. And the Broncos have 9 wins. Broncos, that's a shocker of a story. So the Chargers are not what they were purported to be. I still think they make the playoffs because I think they can beat the Broncos, should definitely post a victory again at New England, and then obviously beat the hapless Raiders. But Harbaugh is going to have to explain to me how they're not going to be one and done in postseason because this is not a complete team right now.
Well, yeah, they should have beat the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda with the
Pittsburgh
Chargers.
included.
And Pittsburgh, yeah. So, but by the way, Pittsburgh's turned out to be a lot better than we thought they were.
They got 10 wins. How's that possible?
That's amazing to me. Here, the Chargers may not even make the playoffs.
No, they'll make it.
But if they do, they're going to just kind of back in.
What did I say? One and done.
One and done. Yeah, but I don't know if they even make it. I mean, Harbaugh has got to be feeling a lot of weight on his shoulders right now. What do you think?
Well, he is, but he had a 3-minute post-game press conference yesterday after the loss, after they got rolled by Tampa. I was like, their season just got torpedoed. Their imagery at that stadium, it was all Tampa Bay Buck fans screaming and yelling for Baker. Mayfield throws 4 touchdowns, and they stampede and run for 222 yards against the vaulted Charger defense.
Well, it was another game where the visiting team had a huge fan base were the Packer fans in Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. But the Chargers are just charging. This is just part of the thing that makes them just so hapless and easy to laugh at.
So here's the thing. If you're a big-time Charger fan or if you're a hater, go to my website. Please read the column I posted today, my one man's opinion column. It's on my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Tell me whether you agree or disagree. Jason, thank you for being with us. Let's move on.
Okay, let's go to Scott. Hacksaw caught a monster greenback on Lake Winnipeg last weekend.
Oh, Canada Network jumping on board. A little wintry to be out there on the lakes in Winnipeg, Manitoba, isn't it? I mean, geez, December is a little tough north of the border in the Great White North.
Is that ice fishing up there?
Could be. Is that what you're making reference to? Monster greenback must be.
I've heard stories about ice fishing and about the ladies of the night that like to go visit.
Oh my goodness. And I got friends that live in Duluth, Minnesota, and that is what they do in the winter. You got to be hardy to want to sit out on Lake Superior and do that.
Oh yeah. Well, they're drinking a lot of beer. They're having a good time.
No, I guess they are. Hey, we had one here from our longtime friend, if you could find it, John Hopkins. Out of the District of Columbia. He's always got unique opinions, and it takes time to join us. Go ahead.
So the Chargers, this is from John. The Chargers are going to charge her until Spanus sells the team and new owner rebrands them. Until then, karma will torture Dean.
What goes around comes around, damn it. Just absolutely amazing. And I mean, just sit out here, John, you probably didn't get to see it. John's based out of the District of Columbia. By the way, John, would you please settle the mess at the White House? John probably didn't get to see the game, but boy, they got torpedoed by Baker Mayfield. That was about as miserable a second half as I've seen Charger football. And they've played a lot of bad second halves this year. I wish the network announcers would quit praising and canonizing Greg Roman about great play caller, this philosophy, that philosophy. Hell, do you know how many games in the second half they've sucked? And he's calling plays for this offense that sucks in the second half of games. Not good at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes they're just so freaking hard to figure out, So now that Herbert is supposedly healthy, but he took a long time to recover from that high ankle sprain. Mahomes is going to be out for a while.
Well, I think maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks. He did not. I saw the video of when he left the locker room. I mean, he looked just desolate from his facial expression. Like, this is pretty significant. High ankle sprain. Herbert's got 3 different injuries, and he's just manning up and hanging in there, and he's taken such wicked hits. I mean, the most disappointing thing to me is that offensive line. They got 3 number 1 picks, and they can't protect him.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I think he's been sacked 41 times, and I keep statistics, and I've had not a minute to be able to go back and research him. I can't imagine how many hits he's taken. I've got the statistics week by week. Just takes me time to go back, but he's been sacked 41 times now. I swear to you, John, he's probably been hit 50 more times in addition to the 41 sacks.
Well, a lot of times when he's in the pocket collapses and it's like really crowded back there, and then he kind of hits a point where he feels like he needs to run, but then by then it's too late. And he's usually just lucky to get back to the line of scrimmage.
0 for 6 on third downs, 6 straight possessions, no points on the board. And that's happened on a whole bunch of different Sundays in the second half of every game. And he's such a fierce competitor. He's such a tough dude. He just stands in there and he gets whacked. One of these times he's going to get whacked, he's not going to get up. And how does that happen behind 3 number 1 picks in your offensive line?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, we talked about the turnstiles. Yeah, that was with the Kansas City offensive line. But yeah, the Chargers are not really showing it.
Okay, John, thanks for being with us. Move on.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go here to Chris. And he goes, sounding off from Pasadena. It's amazing to see the 2018 NFL draft members aging like fine wine and becoming historically significant. Baker and Sam Darnold have finally matched up to their promise. Josh Allen is a Hall of Famer, as well as Saquon and Lamar Jackson. UCLA flop Josh Rosen toiling away at Enterprise Rent-A-Car these days. But what a bleeping class.
Well, the greatest quarterback class of all, I guess, was 1984. That was that...
It was 83.
83 was that Jim Kelly,
John Elway, Todd Blackledge. Yeah. There were 5 of them.
Yeah.
Dan Marino and
whatever.
One more. That was a good class.
That's the all-time greatest quarterback class. So this group has bounced back. I mean, Darnold winds up in the right situation with a pretty good team around him. He's got a better Minnesota team around him than he had when he was scuffling with the New York Jets. Josh Allen went through growing pains, but he's become such a stud, Superman, and it's because of the coordinator and how they run what they run, and he's matured into quit throwing the ball into windows you can't get it in there, or throwing across your body and across the field. And he's such a different quarterback in the last 2 years than he was prior to that, because there were stretches of time where, holy cow, he was a turnover machine.
Yeah, I'm happy that Allen is having success. I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. Sam Darnold it seems like just a resurrection, which is kind of cool.
He's gonna be a free agent too.
Good for him
in the open market.
Yeah, and then already the Vikings still have JJ McCarthy. They got another quarterback there too. So, who was the one? It was
Daniel Jones.
Jones. It came from the Giants. So, sounded off from Pasadena. That was a hell of a class, 2018.
Josh Rosen, Enterprise Car Rental. But you know what? The history, if you go back and if you go draft by draft, I swear to you, John, half the quarterbacks who get drafted in the early rounds don't make it. It's a tough line to go from here, where you are a star, to up there, because up there is so hard physically, emotionally, intellectually, because of the defenses, because of defensive coordinators, because everybody's got video on you. I mean, the whole defensive coordinators thing is, I'm going to find a flaw in your game, and I'm going to devise a defense that forces you to do things that you can't do. And I'm going to take away stuff that you can do really well. And that's what they do Sunday by Sunday in the NFL. Which it makes what Jaden Daniels has accomplished just absolutely amazing in Washington, because that's a raw rookie.
Yeah.
And even though he was concerned about hitting a wall at week 15, he was so exhausted from the preparation and then actually playing, and he hasn't given much ground. He's done very well. The flip side of that is Caleb Williams has been sacked 56 times. Or the flip side of that is Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, who's completing 45% of his passes, is not throwing touchdown passes. Or Bryce Young in Carolina, who I think his record is 4-21 now as a starter. It's really hard.
Yeah, well, I think it is the intellectual side of this, because in high school and college they can get away with just their athletic abilities.
Sure.
But you got guys, like Mahomes and like Jalen Daniels. You're right; they're on another level intellectually, and they can respond when they take away parts of their offense. They know how to play the game intellectually to find the right guy.
And I swear to you, I will continue to work hard, give you a lot of reps, and make you a good talk show host yet, despite your shortcomings. Let's move on.
Hey, I'm learning here on the job. Okay, let's go here to David. And David says, don't want to tell you amazing gents how to do your show, but I hope you'll be talking about San Diego FC. Their first home game is March 1st. They've been getting a lot of players.
Yeah, they have. They've picked up goaltenders. The problem is that these are not household names that we can really identify with. They get a player from Red Bull, New York Red Bull, MLS. They get a player who's a fringe player from the champion LA Galaxy. But these are not marquee names. We're going to have to watch them on the field so we can get a clearer identity as we go forward. But we'll be doing some FC stuff as we move along. And yeah, the season, snap quick. It'll be at Snapdragon Stadium before you know it.
It's going to be fun to root for these guys, because I've always wanted to see an MLS team in San Diego. I saw a picture of Manny Machado wearing their jersey, so it's cool. It's going to be a really nice addition to San Diego sports.
But there'll be a learning curve, because who are these guys? And they're not a lot of household names. It's not like an expansion team in baseball where because these guys are coming from South America. They're coming from Europe.
Well, there's that one guy, Chucky, that's coming over.
Chucky Lozano.
Yeah, so he's a name.
Well, he's a name, and he comes out of Mexico, so it's a little bit of identity there. But you got to have more than one goal scorer there. So we'll see where it goes, and we'll continue to track it.
Okay, let's get Gary in before we go to the social media. He says, hey, I was there at Qualcomm. Stan Humphrey said they did their talking in the papers. We did our talking on the field.
Talking about the Steelers running their mouth.
Yeah, there we go. Standing in the stage with you, Saw. People were rolling kegs of beer into the stadium, hugging the San Diego Police Department. Never a greater night in San Diego history. You were a huge part of that.
Well, it was the greatest moment in San Diego Charger history. And of course, way back in the day, the old American Football League, and they actually had a championship in the glory years of Paul Lowe and Keith Lincoln and
1963.
John Hadel and all those guys. But this was special, and the journey was special. So we'll reserve one of the shows in January as we get set to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Chargers going to the Super Bowl. One of the big disappointments to me is it's like the community has forgotten what these guys accomplished. And granted, they went to the Super Bowl in Miami, and Steve Young lit them up for 60 touchdown passes. And the 49ers had one of the most brilliant offenses I ever saw. And It was just a real hard night. But the journey to get there and what happened that rainy night when we came back from Pittsburgh, it's a memory of a lifetime. I'll never, ever forget it. And I've told you the story. I'll tell the listeners again. So I'm the voice of the Chargers, and we go to Pittsburgh. I'm just fearful we're going to get our doors blown off because it's Pittsburgh. It's Three Rivers. It's a terrible town and all that. And they were, Bill Cowher in the jaw, and they were really good. And Pittsburgh went right down the field on the first drive and scored. I thought, oh, Jesus, it's going to be a bad day. Because we had gotten killed the year before by the Miami Dolphins in the playoffs, 31-0. We got lit up in a road game. I thought, oh, this is going to happen. And Bobby Ross he told those guys, we're going to run the ball. And we're going to slow them down. And they did. They ran them, and Natron Means, he ran a sweep right, and he ran over their Pro Bowl corner and safety. He pummeled Rod Woodson and Carnell Lake. And holy cow, the bench exploded when they saw it. And then the Chargers were back in the game, and then boom, 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 boom. And they went down the field, and they eventually scored another touchdown pass to the tight end. And they bomb to Tony Martin, and then the third down play that Dennis Gibson made, or fourth down play, down on the goal line to save the season. So the greatest moment in Charger history. And then coming back in the rain and walking in that stadium. I came through the tunnel with Bobby Ross. And 68,000 fans. You could not hear yourself or hear anybody talk. The noise was so loud. I thought, holy cow, that's what these guys play in front of every Sunday. Greatest moment in Charger history. But it disappoints me. It's like the community has totally forgotten. Can please somebody tell the Union Tribune, the newspaper in town, this is the 30th anniversary. They have never done anything special to celebrate that team and those players. And of course, we don't have a team anymore. Thank you, the greedy Spanos family. But why has the community forgotten it? It's just absolutely amazing to me.
Well, I think it's like selective amnesia, because they're just still so bitter about the team leaving, So and then when you bring up those nights, those memories of that Qualcomm, in the rainy night, then people are like, oh yeah, I do remember that, and those were good times, and the San Diego was coming together, and we were all, like one big love fest. And how quickly we forget about it because we just go back to being angry and just say, yeah, screw you, Spanos.
I will say this. If you Google on YouTube, because I did voice work for the NFL Films, they put together, I think it's called Chargers Road to the Super Bowl, 1994. It's like a 28-minute mini documentary. It incorporates what happened on that Sunday AFC Championship game. So you go find it and watch it. You'll get excited again. You'll get goosebumps. It's pretty cool.
I remember Alpo Papunu catching a touchdown pass and drinking the coconut milk.
Yep.
Those were good days. But that Neil O'Donnell was the quarterback of the Steelers.
That's right. He's the one that threw the looking pass to the running back that Dennis Gibson went, bingo, not on me, not this day.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of stories to tell on that team because so many of them have passed tragically in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think there's 12 of those players who are on that Super Bowl team have passed away, and that doesn't include the assistant coaches who have passed away. Bobby Ross is still living in Richmond, Virginia at age 85 in a retirement community. He's in pretty good health. I get to see him once every spring or every 2 springs when I go back to Virginia. And it's funny. He moved into a retirement community, he and his wife. And he wrote me a note that says, I love this. I thought, well, that's cool. You're in a retirement community. And so I love it. There's 2 other retired coaches that live in this retirement community. One is 90 and the other guy's 92. And they have breakfast every Monday. And they're gone for 4 hours talking about the college games in the ACC and then talking about the NFL games. So Bobby's living the life of leisure and retirement with fellow coaches. It's really funny.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall in those conversations. Wouldn't that be great?
Learn a little bit there.
Yeah.
Thank you for the comment, Gary.
Well, Gary just has a quick follow-up. He says, don't forget to mention that Pittsburgh made a Super Bowl music video.
Yeah. No, they had announced we're making a Super Bowl music video the next night after the AFC Championship game, and they put it in the papers. And greatest story was relayed to me when the players got to the stadium that day to get their ankles taped for the AFC Championship game in the trainers' rooms. They had taken the whole week's worth of sports pages and headlines in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and I forget, Pittsburgh Press, and they put them up on the walls. And the players are sitting there getting taped that morning for that game. And all they see is this. Super Bowl party planned at 8 o'clock. Super Bowl video, Steelers will be recorded Monday. And they're watching all this. That caught their attention. And they went out there, and then they survived the first series when the Pittsburgh scored, and they survived getting stuffed on a fourth down play by Nathan Means, and they got progressively tougher and tougher and tougher as they went. But Google Road to the Super Bowl, NFL Films, Chargers Road to the Super Bowl 1994. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's cool. I had done it. I had totally forgotten about it. Somebody brought it up to me about a year ago, and I found it. I said, this is pretty neat.
It was great times, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool, the funny stories like this with the Super Bowl videos. Hey, let's go to social media, and here's a really good one here.
Do you want me to check out now so you can just take the abuse?
Okay, here we go. This is from Rolson, and he says, I used to listen to Hacksaw on AM radio back in the 90s in LA, and just recently noticed his Instagram feed. And I have to say, it's weird looking at his actual face. I have never seen a picture before this, and that's not the face I imagined in my head. Nothing bad, just a strange feeling for me. Kind of like when I met Jim Ladd in person and heard his voice coming out of an actual person instead of my radio.
End of the day. Is the content good? Hell yes. Do we have you hooked? Do we ask for your opinions? Hell yes. What are we arguing about?
It's funny though, because sometimes, when you were doing radio, doing the Chargers broadcast, it's like the voice from God, coming down. And Rolson's point is right, is that when you hear the voice coming out of a human that you've never seen before, it's kind of shocking. For me, the big shock is when I saw Bill King for the first time with his handlebar mustache, because he was the announcer for the Warriors and the Raiders and the A's. So yeah, I mean, you must hear this a lot.
Some. But hey, I was disappointed in you too. So what can I say?
Well, you have a unique look, and you kind of thrive on that. It's all good.
Hey, thank you for joining us. Hope you become a regular. More importantly, Rolson, you tell everybody about who we are and where we are and what we're doing.
Okay, let's talk a little Rams here. This is what is that from DO53? I've been a Ram fan since Roman Gabriel was quarterback. When a team leaves your city, it's difficult to accept the return. I have, but many have not.
Well, it's interesting because they came back and have been to 2 Super Bowls. And right now they are a really dangerous team. And that job that coach Sean McVay has done has been spectacular. So I if you're a pro football fan, you should appreciate what they've rebuilt here. Now, you might be upset that Georgia Frontiere took the bloody thing and went to St. Louis and then sold it and screwed it all up. But at the end of the day, is it NFL football in LA? Yes. Is it the Rams in LA with the colors, the uniforms, the horns on the helmet? Yes. Are they really good? Yes. Appreciate what you have. Charger fans here don't have a franchise, and they are forever bitter. I've made the phrase, and a lot of people put it on social media, that I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0 because I like the player and respect the quarterback and his intellect, and I hope Dean Spanos, the owner, goes 0-17, and that's all over social media. But at the end of the day, that's our franchise that's up there. It should still be here. You got your franchise back, and boy, you've had success under Stan Kroenke.
It's funny you mentioned Georgia Frontiere.
Yeah,
and I just every once in a while, someone will mention a name, and then I'll go in a rabbit hole and look up their Wikipedia article and go and look up all the NFL stats. And the name was Burt Jones.
Sure, the quarterback.
And then I saw the Sports Illustrated cover with him and Georgia Frontiere, and those were some interesting times back in LA.
Yeah, and of course he was from LSU, drafted by the Colts. Actually, that's where he became a star, and then he finish up at the end with the Rams.
But that was like all in the 1970s, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, but she left a trail of debris and all types of controversy, and then left and went to St. Louis, and then the franchise was sold. And, they did win a Super Bowl. Mike Martz, coach who lives here, I mean, that was the era of Marshall Faulk. And the greatest show on turf. That was Kurt Warner. That was such a spectacular short window that the St. Louis Rams had.
Now, was Falk drafted by the Rams or the Colts?
Colts traded.
Colts. That's incredible that he was traded. He was just such a talent.
Yeah, but it was a contract issue. And so that, and Eric Dickerson got traded too. So, that was all part of the whole same thing. Free agent, a lot of money, testy relationship, ownership, etc.
But that's Irsay in Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Very crazy, man. Okay, let's go here. Let's talk a little Padres, and let's go here to, who is this? Our guest scholar, Hacksaw. You and everyone said the same exact stuff last winter. And AJ gave them one of the best chances at a championship, maybe in team history in 2024. You trashed AJ so much, and the Padres were a game away from essentially a guaranteed World Series if they hadn't completely forgotten how to hit the ball in Game 4. Trust in AJ. I'll be looking forward to your hat eating video after the All-Star break when you admit you were wrong again.
I wasn't wrong last year. They didn't get there. They made the trades, and I said they have 2 years, a 2-year window to do this. After they made the trades, they traded the farm system away a third time, and they got Cease, and of course the contracts to Darvish and to Joe Musgrove and all the other big money extended contracts, traded the farm system away. They had 2 years to get to the World Series. Should have been in the World Series this past year, didn't get it done. Now the question, can they be a World Series team this year if they have to trade Cease and Arise? Because if you're taking guys off this roster that were cornerstones, how do you replace them? Are you getting equal value back? I'm not sure. Trust in AJ? Yes, because he's built it. But there is no future after this year because the farm system's gone. You know, the amazing thing is the Padres have 33 men on their offseason roster, 40-man roster, because there's nobody left to protect that they have to protect because they have nothing left at the upper echelon of the farm system. They had a 2-year window. They just lost this year. You know, when they made the Soto trade, they said, well, we're going to rent him for 3 years. That'll be our window. Well, they got rid of him after 2, got talent back. But now they may be forced to trade some of the talent they got back again. I'm not burying AJ. I question his methodology. I question the contracts they gave out. I question trading the whole bloody farm system away 3 different times in 9 years. So I would hope that they're right there like they were last year. But damn, the division, holy cow, what the Dodgers have done. So you got to go through LA again. And if you don't have Dylan Cease, you don't have a Rise anywhere near the same roster. You're going to argue with me? You can weird at me. Go ahead.
Well, you think about this. In 2022, the Padres almost got to the World Series, right? You know, and they had gotten Soto in that deal. And yeah, we gave up a lot to the Nationals to get Soto. But generally speaking, people were excited about that.
Sure.
They're praising AJ Preller, rockstar GM. He's back. This is great. And then the whole thing went to hell. And by the way, now we're learning about, you know, confirmation of the bad chemistry between Juan Soto and the other players that were there. But that wasn't necessarily AJ's fault. I mean, we were stroking AJ when he made that deal. Well, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong for him that really you can't blame him for.
Well, but you can blame him for the extended contracts that now he can't trade. And you can blame him for trading all these young guys that are cornerstones on other teams. And he's not yet been to a World Series. And you can blame him for the erosion of the farm system again, and again, and he's still not there in the Fall Classic. Can't whitewash what he's done from a business and baseball perspective. Do you hope? Sure. Of course you hope. Has he pulled rabbits out of the hat in the past? Sure. But he hasn't been to the Fall Classic yet. And to me, this is the window, and it's going like this.
Yeah, the window is closing. There are a lot of Padre fans that want to fire AJ, that wanted to fire him years ago. You know, and they're angry about it. But from my point of view, the Padre baseball has never been more exciting than it is now.
I concur. And that's why I did the commentary last week that I think our guest scholar is screeching about. I asked the question on my commentary on One Man's Opinion. They've raised the ticket prices 50% in 4 years, 50%. And they have drawn record crowds, 3.2 million and 3.3 million last summer. Don't you think ownership owes it to this community, which has filled that stadium and spent wads of money, owe this community to bump this payroll up instead of coming back and saying, you got to cut it below 170, and that means getting rid of a pitcher and getting rid of that first base? Don't you think Padre ownership owes it to you, me, giant fan co-host here? You tell me. I mean, that's an arguing point that I think we'll have to see. And like I said, the window's tight. I think they got to be a Fall Classic team next season.
Well, I think you have to be realistic because when Seidler was alive, bless his heart, he was kicking in his own money,
or money on cash calls from the other owners,
or however it was. But, at some point, the ownership is going to say, hey, man, we made an investment. We want to get a return on our investment. We're not going to subsidize this thing. It needs to make money on its own.
It's making money on its own between national TV revenue, TV contracts locally, and 3.3 million. They've never had revenue like this before. But to go from 231 million down to 170 million, and now say, got to cut it further. And you look what's going on up north at Dodger Stadium. Okay, we'll see. They got one. I think they got one more year to see if they can make this work. But how do you make it work if your hand is forced? You had to hit the eject button on a couple more named players.
Well, I think their intent was to try to sign Soto. They thought they'd be able to convince him, right? But it was pretty clear right from the onset he was going to be going to free agency.
I concur. Okay, thank you for the call. Let's do a couple more here.
Okay, let's go here. Talking about, again, L.A., do they support the Chargers or the Rams? This is what Rick said. He goes, let's face it, it's a Raider town. 3 teams wanted Rams, Raiders, and the Chargers. Rams owner knew that if the Raiders came and took over the city, they didn't have a chance. So the other owners voted for him and let the cheapo Charger in.
Well, at the end of the day, the Raiders have a great legacy of fan support. At the end of the day, the franchise was in disarray at the end of Al Davis's life. Mark Davis has taken over. It's gotten worse. Do the Raiders have a lot of fans wearing their colors and their paint? Hell yes. Is the product on the field any good? Absolutely not. Raider fans, you have 2 winning seasons in 22 years. They play Monday Night Football, and you're going to probably be 2-12 after this game. So you can't tell me this is great football. I was told from people I believe who worked in the NFL, the league did not want Mark Davis and a bad business operation in the LA market. They wanted credibility, and that was Stan Kroenke, who paid for the stadium himself. And they wanted a second tenant, and it happened to be Spanos and the Chargers. It was never, ever going to be the Raiders because the Raiders are a bad business operation. They got a gift package to go to Vegas, but again, they're not winning. And the NFL did not want a bad product on the field. That's why Harbaugh wound up with the Chargers. The league went to Spanos, I was told, and said, enough of these mistakes, enough with being cheap. You have to hire a name coach. And when Harbaugh became available, they told him, almost mandated, that's the guy you got to get to fix your own credibility. So there's interest now in the Chargers, but I tend to think the Rams still emotionally own that market.
I don't know if either team owns the market, but I think Rick's right. I think Raider fans are the dominant force in LA, because that's where, Antonio Pierce came from, right? Wasn't he part of that, the growing up with Marcus Allen days of LA Coliseum Raiders?
But Pierce was a Parcells guy. He was a New York Giant, New England Patriot guy.
But didn't he grow up in LA?
He was in Compton.
Yeah, exactly. So, back when the Raiders were playing in LA. So there's just a lot of LA Raider fans that still exist. But, there's a lot of chirping on this particular social media video that you did. Is it which team owns the LA market? A lot of fans are also saying that the Rams and the Chargers are making progress. So it was dire a few years ago for the Chargers. No one wanted it.
Nobody went there.
But now it's starting to change.
Well, maybe, but if that was the case, then why as Baker Mayfield was throwing 4 touchdowns and they were piling up 505 yards yesterday, why did that sound like a Buccaneer home game?
Because Southern California, everybody's from somewhere else.
Okay. All right, let's do one more social media comment.
Okay, let's go here. This is a good one. This is from Big Run. He goes, this guy has been negative since Mighty 1090 days with Scott and BR. I like this team, talking about the Chargers, better than the last 5 years.
Well, they weren't real good. I think there's great potential here, but they've disappointed. And I'm dealing with the Chargers on a week-by-week basis. They have now lost 3 of 4. They've been blasted a lot by other teams that were much deeper, much more physical, etc. You got to deal with where you are right now. Now, you can be a fan. That's fine if you like the Powder Blues and the Lightning Bolt, and I happen to have great regard for Justin Herbert, and there's no doubt that Harbaugh's track record is spectacular. They probably need another Joe Ortiz draft to add on to what they currently have. But they're going in the wrong direction right now. Negative. What's there to be negative? You're dealing with what you are. You hired, you screwed Ross, you screwed Schottenheimer, you gave us Mike McCoy, then you gave us Anthony Lynn, then you gave us Brandon Staley. Well, I'm supposed to paint a picture that everything is beautiful while you're getting your doors blown off. A year ago this week, 63-21 Raiders in Las Vegas over the Chargers.
Oh, that was brutal.
Yes. And I'm supposed to paint a picture that everything's beautiful? I don't know. Maybe a big run is related to Spanos. End of the day, I'm dealing with the information that's right there in front of you. And last I checked, my podcast, I'll tell you what I think. When it's your podcast, you can tell me what you think, and then I can argue with you as a listener, caller, viewer, just like you're arguing with me right now. I'm not negative. I'm just dealing with what they are. Please tell me since the Marty Schottenheimer, Bobby Ross days, have they accomplished bleep? Big run? Got a response?
Yeah, because in the Schottenheimer days, the best game, really the highest level they made was that AFC Championship game in New England, right?
Yeah, Rivers, Gates, Tomlinson, but those guys were hurt.
Yeah, I remember that Rivers was playing without an ACL or something like that.
He had had knee surgery, and Tomlinson got hurt, and he was on the bench.
Yeah. So, they've never gotten back to that. The last 5 years have just been sort of sputtering. And, remember they got blown out by the Jaguars a few years ago. So, but it is funny that you get criticism and praise from all different angles. We love Hacksaw. Thanks for the memories. And, you're so negative and blah, blah, blah. But, that's the nature of being, essentially like a columnist, where you're putting opinions on the table
based on fact.
Yeah. So, but you like to stir the pot too. I mean, you're good at that.
I like to tell people what I think.
Right.
Big run. Thanks for participating. I'll wait for your next take. Good to have you with us. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this podcast.